Welcome back everybody to Body Bags. I am Critterbuster, and this is my favorite week because this is one of my favorite subjects that we're dealing with. It was my choice to choose the theme this week, and I chose anthology films, my favorite subgenre of films, of horror films at least. And I'm going to review my favorite anthology film that I've ever seen, and this is Campfire Tales. This came out in 1997, and it's not to be confused with a movie called Campfire Tales from the early 90s that had Gunnar Hansen in it. This one from 97, and this one has Kristen Taylor in it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with anthologies, basically what it is when 3 or 4 different short stories are told throughout the film, kind of like short stories just added to each other, or there's a wraparound story where it's somebody telling you the stories, or there's a theme to them in certain ways. This is one of the campfire type settings where it's just people gather around a campfire and they take turns telling you different stories. I love the idea of that. Sometimes some stories are just so short and so small that the only way to tell them is by making them real short, and this is the best way to do it, I think. Sometimes they're really, really good because of that, because you don't have to have a complete build-up for an hour or whatever just for that one payoff. You get it immediately within, 20 or 30 minutes. But this one right here, it has a very twist ending to it, so I'm not going to ruin that, but I'll explain everything up to the twist. It starts off with a group of people who are traveling to a concert or back from a concert. I can't remember which way. It's either to a concert or back from. And they wreck their car, and they get stranded in the woods. So they build a fire, and they start seeing, which one can tell a scary story. And the first story that they tell is, I'm not sure of the actual titles of the story. They don't list them on here. I'm sure they do during the credits and everything, but I don't know exactly what they're called. But the first story involves a couple that is kind of like taking like a honeymoon trip, and they're going to go camping in their RV in the middle of the woods, just to have a relaxing time. Man, I can't talk. And while they get out there, they come across this one guy who tells them they can't go into the woods at night. They have to have light because there's creatures out there, and the creatures only come out at night. And, well, of course, they heed the warning, and soon enough, the RV gets attacked, and the man has to go and get help. And they don't really show the creatures very much. It's just like one or two shots of the creatures. But it's definitely atmospheric. You definitely get a feel that they are trapped, and that the creatures themselves are very dangerous. And I felt like if I was in that situation, I'd have been just as terrified as they were. But it's a really good story. You definitely get a sense of what the characters are for that story, and it's really, really interesting. From there goes to my second favorite story of the anthology, and it involves a young girl who just turned 11. It's her birthday, and her parents are going out of town, and when they get back, they're going to celebrate her birthday. So she spends the night with her sister at their house, and her sister goes out to a party. So she leaves her 11-year-old sister there, or she leaves the little girl there by herself. Well, the little girl has been, chatting online. This was back in the 90s when, the chat rooms were a little different. But she was chatting online to what she thought was her friend, and she told him that she was going to be home alone. And sure enough, this takes like the urban legend approach, where all the themes are based on like urban legend type stories. And this one has where when the girl's left alone, thinks like the person that she was actually talking to wasn't her friend. It was actually a grown adult who was looking to kill her. And so the guy goes to her home. He looks her up and goes to her home while she's alone, and he hides under her bed. And she thinks that there's nothing there. And each night when she goes to sleep, she sleeps with her dog, and she reaches her hand under her bed for her dog to lick her hand to kind of like soothe her, make her comfort or whatever. And well, she does this. She hears a noise, so she goes downstairs. And when she comes back, she sticks her hand under the bed and lets the dog lick her hand. And you don't actually see it happen. But then she hears another sound, and she goes in, and she finds her dead dog. And she comes back into her room, and she looks into the mirror, and written in blood in the mirror says, "People can lick too." and you can see the actual guy hiding underneath her bed, which that story right there is actually really, really creepy, and I'm sure it's based on something that probably truly happened. Of course, the main idea of that with the whole people can like do thing is probably a little bit the far-fetched part, but everything else is probably 100% based on reality. I'm going to jump back to the very beginning here because I actually forgot about something. The first thing we actually see, to let people know that it's kind of like an urban legend type deal, like where it's based on urban legends, the first thing we see before it jumps into the actual stories is like maybe a 5-minute little short that has to deal with like the hook story, where the couple is out in the car and they're making out and they hear a sound, what sounds like a hook or something like hitting the edge of the car, and the girl gets scared and she drives away. They hear on the radio that there's an escaped man missing a hand, and he has a hook for his hand, and he's on the loose and he's ready to kill someone. The guy gets out of his car, and sure enough, there was a hook hanging from the car door right where they heard the noise at. And it's all filmed in black and white, like took place in the 50s or something like that. It was actually really cool, and it definitely set the mood to let you know what you're in for. Now jumping back to the last story here, there's only really 3 main stories and a wraparound. The third story is my favorite. It's my favorite anthology story of all time. Just the way it's done, the atmosphere that it gave me when I watched it for the first time back when it came out, and it stars Glenn Quinn. If you might know him from the TV show Roseanne. He played the older boyfriend type character. He was also in Dr. Giggles as the main boyfriend in Dr. Giggles. But he plays in this, and he's like a guy who's traveling cross country on his motorcycle, and it's like he runs out of gas, and it starts raining on him. So he sees this old like mansion house thing or whatever at the distance. So he goes over and knocks on the door and asks if he can stay there until he gets for the rain and storm to pass and stuff, so he can get some gas the next day. And it's this beautiful girl who opens up the door, and she doesn't talk. She's unable to speak at all. So she invites him in, and she's trying to explain to him, what her deal is, why she can't speak. And he's just, I take that back. He's trying to figure out why this. She's not really explaining anything to him. He's just trying to ask her and guess everything. But anyways, the night gets there really short, and he wakes up in the middle of the night with a sound of someone screaming and getting killed. So he runs downstairs, and he finds her just standing there, and she's scared, but nothing is out of the ordinary. And then, sure enough, the same sounds happen again and again, over and over in like a repeat mode. And it's basically the woman is with her boyfriend, and her dad comes home, finds her, finds the boyfriend, and kills both of them in the kitchen, and then kills himself in the well. And it just happens over and over and over again in a repeat mode. And once it finishes, everything clears up, and then it happens again. And he keeps seeing these, but he thinks it's really happening, and he's trying to save this girl. So he gets in the middle of it, and eventually the story becomes those two into the story. And the way it was just executed to me, like it has that old style music to it, like from the 50s and stuff, from 40s. And it's just really creepy and very atmospheric. And I really, really love that story. It probably doesn't sound well the way I explained it, but it's still really, really cool and really good. And then comes to the wraparound story, back to the Campfire where the people are telling the story. And it cuts from there to what I'll think is probably one of the first big twists that I've ever seen or remember seeing in a movie that I really liked. And the twist, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but it does involve all 4 of these members in the Campfire that were telling the stories. And it's really, really interesting, and it's really, really cool, and the way they did it was very creative, I thought, at the time, and I really, really liked it. I think this is a top-notch anthology film. If anybody lists, best anthology films, obviously Creepshow and Creepshow 2 is going to be on there. But I think this one is definitely going to be right up there with everybody's. I know people that don't like the movie, but I don't see how. I think it is a fantastic film, and it's my favorite anthology film of all time, with my favorite anthology story in it. That might be the reason why I love it, is just because of that one particular story. But I love the way it's done, the way it's executed. The effects are good. The acting is top notch, I think. And you can't get any better. This was put out by New Line Cinema, one of my favorite companies from the 80s and 90s. And too bad that they didn't make more films like this. Anthology films seem to be kind of going away, and now they seem to be trying to come back, but at an more independent level. You don't see big studios making anthology films anymore, and it's a shame because I think they are amazing and really, really well done when it comes to studio-made anthology films. So guys, if you're interested in anthologies, definitely check this one out. This is one of the best ones. I highly recommend this one. I would probably give this one a 8 out of 10, maybe 8.5 out of 10 if I can do half, so I'm not sure. But 8 out of 10, definitely a great anthology film. So thanks guys for watching, and check back again next week for another theme.